I am in Torreya State Park today in Florida at the start of the Challenge Trail, which is 6.7 miles of what is said to be the most challenging hike in all of Florida. And I'm here to hug all the trees, all of them. Not one will be missed. And I'll tell you all about it when I get back. Sticking with the spirit of this channel, I'm going to share with you what I'm wearing today. This outfit is courtesy of my local thrift store. And of course, my zero drop shoes from Baje. Everything except the shoes is 100% cotton. I'm a big fan of thrift shopping because it helps me to do my part to keep clothes out of the landfills and also helps me save money. The only two items that I didn't get from the thrift store are the hat and this shirt, which have both been in my wardrobe for many, many years and are also 100% cotton. I appreciated that this sign was at the beginning of this path, and that the state of Florida would go to these lengths to make sure that you understand what you're getting yourself into. At the start of the path, I was advised by my camping friend to go counterclockwise, as that would save the most beautiful part of the trip for last, and so I did. So far, this is pretty incredible. The 6.7 mile information came from a local camper, and I decided that I would go ahead and confirm that. And when I did, it turns out this is 12.5 miles long, but I'm not worried. This is actually even more exciting. I'm just going to have to hustle along. As the sign said, it takes the average hiker about 6 hours to complete. And I consider myself a little bit above average, so... At first, I thought that I wouldn't share much of the hike since we've got 12.5 miles to go and I'm just trying to stay alive today. But then I found this mile marker halfway through. Remember, I started at the end. And deduced that my online reference must have added the length of all the trails here, not just the challenge trail. This confused me entirely, but reminded me that it's always better to take advice from someone who sleeps outside over Google. So at this point, I decided to slow down a little and share the scene while we share in today's fabric frequency topic. Today, we are going to discuss the question that passes through all of our minds when considering fabric frequency. What is used to measure the frequency, and where do I get one? So as you may know, on this channel we are focusing on optimal health through the lens of frequencies, particularly the frequency of fabrics, and how that pertains to our overall health. So many folks are becoming curious about this topic. Ultimately, we are waking up to our reality in a much more multidimensional and nuanced way. When Dr. Heidi Yellen conducted a study on the frequency of fabrics in 2003, this concept really inspired an already triggered question regarding the toxicity of synthetic fibers like polyester. The information found in Yellen's study is brief. It leaves many questions and a lot of curiosities. Like most scientific studies, it opens up a door and leaves even more questions. One of the questions being, how can we all measure the frequency of our material world? This is the exact question we are bringing to clarity today in our walk. To go in deeper into this discussion, and to touch on the many various parts that are required to understand this topic, hopefully you have or will join me for the other videos on this channel, which further discuss Yellen's study, as well as an ongoing assessment of different clothing, the companies that produce them, and the various other points that play a vital role in the overall impact that fabrics have on our bodies. But to catch us up for today's discussion on frequency health, here's just a quick recap on a few of Yellen's findings. First, polyester carries a signature frequency of 15, which is the same measurable frequency of a diseased human body. What she was able to measure was the three-dimensional representation of that material. Information remains very incomplete when we only look at the three-dimensional or the material world without assessing the consciousness behind it. We'll dig deeper into that in just a few moments. The second point that we will recap on is a well human body carries a frequency of about 100 as it was measured then in 2003. Drawing a parallel for understanding, organic cotton fiber measures at around the same. making it a resonant material with the human body and thus a supportive conduit for a healthy flow of life force. Being in the forest today for this discussion is appropriate and helps us to draw some very important parallels and to ultimately answer the question of the day. The vital impact that nature has on our well-being is not a new concept. Nature is medicine and provides us with exposure to elements both seen and unseen that regulate our physical and energy systems for optimal health in ways we lose in our modern living. There are names given to the practices of relating to the outdoors in this way, like forest bathing and earthing. Our biorhythms, nervous system, emotional and mental functions, and literally every facet of our living self rely on a connection to nature. Here we can find every answer we need to life. But believe it or not, there are some businesses out there who not only mistreat nature in the way that they overutilize the earth, taking all of its resources for gain, but an even greater agenda, beyond even the comprehension of my heart, lies a truth that there are companies, individuals, entities out there who are creating ways in which to separate us from the earth so that we may lose our independence, our sovereignty, and become more reliant upon a system that ultimately keeps us sick. Going back to the frequency of clothing as it relates to our body, it's easy to see how synthetic material serves as a barrier that disrupts the flow of life and ultimately causes disease. If one is curious about the frequency of a material in their clothing, they simply need to take a look at it with this one question in mind. Does it support organic life? Like most questions that we've become completely confused on, it's actually just that simple. Take a look at the source of any material: cotton, hemp, linen, polyester. What are the effects it has on the environment? Chances are, if it's synthetic, it is very dangerous for the environment, for the earth, for the people. Chances are great that it creates severe devastation on the earth, the communities around it, as well as the creatures that live on it. Organically grown and sustainable fibers such as cotton, hemp, and linen carry a higher frequency because they contribute to the natural regenerative cycle of life. To understand the frequency of the rough materials, look no further than these exact questions. But the rough materials are not your clothes. We're getting there. There are more layers to study here. Next, we're assessing if that item of clothing or bedding or anything really that you purchase is going to heal or harm you. And that is by overlaying that same question. Does it support organic life onto the practices, policies, and the people that operate the clothing companies we support? Here, we develop a sharp internal gauge for detecting what is toxic versus what holds actual goodness, and ultimately supports the health of every living being, including the earth. When we look at the total picture, the entire journey of an item that has made its way into our life, let us look back at the story. Is there greed and degradation in this story? Are resources accessed and used with reverence and moderation? What happens to the folks when these factories and systems set up on their land? Is the community itself supported? Luckily, it only takes a little bit of work to look into the companies and to educate ourselves upon what they're doing. If we are lucky, we'll stumble upon certain companies that will have a level of transparency and access to the highest people in that company that allows us to fully understand what we are supporting. With this greater awareness, we are more inclined to push for greater national policies, which will support farmers and companies in better practices. The question of the day, so simply answered, does what every question that is answered does. which poses more questions, such as, how can we take responsibility and participate in the exchange? Which adds richness to the journey of shopping for clothes anyway, don't you think? Wow, that was really a great hike. Just over this bridge is the connecting trail that takes me off of the challenge loop and back to my car. I gotta be honest, I was really relieved to see this connecting trail. However, the connecting trail itself was a little bit longer than a half mile, ultimately making today's hike almost 8 miles long. I am really grateful first to the creators of these Bahe shoes. One day soon in the future, I hope to have an interview with the creators of this company to hear a little bit more about their insights on green exercise. I did a review on these Bahe shoes as well as another pair of zero drop shoes. I'll link that in the description box below. Wow. That was a challenge for sure, and I'm really glad that it wasn't 12 miles long. Just a tip, if you come to take this trail and you're currently not using tick spray, I would recommend putting a pretty solid Merkaba up around you. Thank you for taking this walk with me today. If you found this video helpful or interesting at all, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.